Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. I apologize. I've got a bit of a cold. I was just at a game design conference in San Francisco last week and took a red eye back and meeting all those people. Anyway, ended up with a cold and it's taken me a week to shake it off. Um, anyway, so we're going to talk today about utilizing game design in a variety of subjects. Um, Traditionally, I think we've looked at game design and even just computer science as a silo onto itself. So students either are taking traditional subjects like humanities, art, language, and they sometimes I think we're putting a lot of kids off of what today is ubiquitous, which is digital technology in everything we do. My name's Frank Moody. I am Education Relations for GameMaker. A little bit about myself. I'm a retired, basically, educator, administrator in private education. I spent about 25 years building technology programs in schools, as well as teaching computer science, along with digital production in terms of photography, film, audio. So in my later life, after education, I'm making it a real stance here to try and get as much technology into all classrooms that we can. When we look at the benefits of game design, there's just a whole slew of things that go into designing a game. The first and foremost would be critical thinking. At every step of the process, students need to learn to think critically, not only of what they want to accomplish, but how people will look at their game. How will the player play in their game? This also takes them into really gaining communication skills, the ability to communicate not only with their participants or the people, the players who will play the game, but also with other artists or audio technicians or someone writing their narrative, which I'll get into more of. There's just a lot of communication that has to take place in order for a project, especially of a finished game, to take place. This then leads also to collaboration. Collaboration skills are supported all the way along because you have to learn how to say, well, maybe my idea is too far out, or maybe I'll have to use your idea because it's maybe a little better. So collaboration, the ability to understand that others have a voice in the end product, and that everybody's voice will make a better product in the end. Obviously, there's creativity all the way around. A game that's not creative, if the whole process of creating a game and designing a game, there's a ton of creativity that goes in. But of course, we can sit and make a game and design a game all day long, but the real things come into time management because there's a beginning of a game and then there has to be an end of a game. And there are usually goals involved with that and time limits as to when that can happen. And then, of course, there's problem solving because all the way along, you may think that the computer or your game can do something, but you have to solve the problems in order to create that environment that you want to make that game happen in. So why should you teach game design? Well, again, I think in today's world, everything is digital. From a person working in retail to someone working in a restaurant, they are going to be dealing with digital technology. And so it's important for all of our students to understand digital technology, how it's designed, how it works, who's making it, what are they trying to gather from using that game or even anything that's digital today, your own phone. So an understanding of technology and how technology works, I think, is key in today's environment. Now, teaching game design traditionally could be done a lot of ways, and we still, obviously, in order to learn the tool, you have to get into the tool. So you can make a game step by step using video. A lot of students, a lot of kids jump right in. They want to build a game. They have an idea. they just jump in, they just go out, they find videos, they start pushing buttons, um, and they just create what they can, and then they go out to other communities and find information. Then, of course, there's just the making a game step by step with a teacher leading you. The teacher sets up the lessons. You're going to learn this at this point. You're going to learn this at that point. And there's a lot to be said for basic instructional learning as students go along. And then there's a new way that we're really working on some resources for, which we call modding. And in modding, in game modding, the game is already designed, the game is there, but now you can make changes to the game to make it your game. So you can change the artwork or the characters that are within the game. You could change the language of the game. So students could take a game that they understand, and then if maybe they're beginning in Spanish, they can change all of the scripts into a Spanish, script, and that the storyline is all in Spanish, and maybe even include culture in that. We're really excited about the ability of modding within games and having templates so that students may not have to learn the actual insides of the game, but be able to use a game and create it and make it their own. As I alluded to, in computer science, game design has been one way of teaching computer science. The Computer Science Teachers Association has a list of obviously standards that are aligned skills with level 2 and 3. They generally mainly deal with algorithms and programming. And they also talk about the impacts of computing. But I'm going to talk about a little different thing today, and that is so many of the things that go into a game can be involved and find so many other communities that could be involved in game design and really be enriched from that. The first would be art. Art is so important to a game. Games rely on the artwork. The creation of game resources are all artwork. Today we start digital art with, basically pixels and creating art through pixel making. And it's the manipulation and the movement of this pixel art that is part of the game engine's design. And it really reinforces and teaches basics of digital artwork. The second area of game design, I think, is in the humanities, is music. Music is such an important part to a game. A game without music and sound, if you've ever tried to, or watch a movie without music and sound, a lot of the emotional motivators are right there within the music. The music resources bring the games to life. Learning to use music to build drama, to create an exciting point in the game when you're right there and you're maybe at the end and you're going to reach a new point, a new level. Though the ability to learn music and learn how music motivates and draws on emotions. This is such an important thing that just designing a game within an art lens can be so special. We look at history and game design. There are games that are created right now that basically work with old narratives of the historical events and time periods. And we know that sometimes for students, for a high population of students, the ability to see and feel and engage with those historical events is a much better way for them to learn than to just memorize dates. Creating a video game based on a historical event in time, the student not only has to know about the event, but they have to dig deeper in order to really understand the dynamics of what happens. It also gives them a historical interpretation and a narrative and critical choices of what parts of that history they're going to show and learn. And I truly think it reinforces cultural empathy in that the students really have to understand why these historical moments happened, understand the players and the characters, and recreate those things. And then language. I think that creating dialogues using a second language for students can be such a powerful tool. Again, it's engagement, it's interactivity with the actual language. Rather than just reading it or having to write it, students can look at a second language through a whole different lens through game design. Branching scenarios can reinforce those communication skills. So not only do they have to have just maybe one narrative, but they have to write a whole other narrative for when their player may pick a different path, a different branch of where they're going. So I think it allows them to look at language through a whole bunch of different lenses. And again, I think it's going to reinforce their cultural empathy. GameMaker itself was developed in 1999 for education by Professor Mark Overmars. It's an easy to learn 2D game making tool. It uses a visual as well as a coding language. So young students can even do this through visual blocks. And then by connecting those blocks, they're able to use those. And I'll show you an example of that in just a minute. We're also providing free educator resources, as well as we have right now on our roadmap a gathering and creating a community of educators where we're going to try and focus in on lesson plans for using game design and GameMaker in all of these areas that I'm talking about. We have about 1,700 new users a day sign up. These vary from education all the way through people, indie designers who want to build their own games. And again, this is a true 2D game engine. There are other game engines out there, Unity and Unreal, but they're mainly focused on 3 dimensions. And those 3 dimensions get you into a Z-axis, and lighting and environment, which those are all even bigger challenges. As I mentioned, it's a 2D game engine, so it's best for platformers, tower games. It has a very shallow learning curve with its visual markup language. It allows the students to first start into visual programming, and then, of course, it allows them to move into code-based programming. So like Scratch, it allows you to do it in the visual sense, but then you're able to actually complete and even expand. And our 2D game engine is used by even professional studios, not only for prototyping, but for fully released games. As I talked about earlier, and I said I'd show you an example. On the one side, you can see we have a visual program set up. And that visual program then can be transferred directly into coded program. So the ability to use these visual building blocks and connect them, make the changes, really helps to reinforce the learning of the coding. And although GameMaker markup language, the GameMaker language itself isn't probably used for most computer science applications, just in GameMaker, a lot of the syntax and a lot of the setup and the computational thinking are all transferable skills if a student wants to move off into learning C#, Visual Basic scripting, or even Java. Teaching game design with GameMaker, we do have an introduction video. We're working on a whole lesson plan, to be honest, that we have remade, which will also incorporate some more newer age things like Quizlet and Kahoots in order for students to be able to do their quizzes online. And so those teacher packages we are making available. I expect that those are going to be out, I'm hoping, in the next 2 to 3 weeks. But Space Rocks is basically based on the old arcade game of Asteroids. This tutorial could be completed in as little as 15 minutes for someone who's already familiar with creating games. But for the beginner, this can be brought out into maybe 3 or 4 days, 1 hour days, of course, about a week long. There's a short tutorial of the complete game. It gives you a good introduction into GameMaker. And again, we have video and written tutorials, which we've been remaking. And it can be done in both the visual and the code versions of GML. We also have some complete games, which are, again, I talked about those templates and modding. This is coming along even more, and we've got a couple more games on the way. Fire Jump and Little Town are great complete games. They do have in-depth tutorials for changing the game, creating the game, making the game your own. They have video and written tutorials for them. Fire Jump is a endless platformer game, which allows you to continue jumping up, saving people from a burning building. And it is done mainly in the visual. And then Little Town is just a tabletop kind of game that allows you to go around and collect objects. Both of these are going to have a high amount of modding in them to allow you to change the game, to allow students to change the game, make the game their own, with very, very little coding up front. But what they're doing is then dissecting why, what happens when, by having examples straight in front of them. We also have some individual projects that just are how-to short videos. They answer most of our frequently asked questions when people are onboarding. This can support students during the creation of their own independent games. So as a student comes across something and goes, wow, I just don't know how to make this jump from here to here, there are short tutorials that how to make your player jump, or how to make your creature combat, or all of these things. So there's a huge, vast amount of resources available for educators. We also have a GameMaker blog in which we go through and talk to a lot of the indie game makers, and they tell us a lot about how they make their games, how they even got into their gaming, their certain areas of expertise. We have a YouTube channel as well that has a vast amount of resources. We have a very robust GameMaker community that are very friendly, that are willing to help anyone. We've had some kids who started when they were 11 years old on their own and just gone into the community, and the community has helped pump them up. And those same people are now in our community, and they're much older, making their own independent games. And I think it's a great community and a great place for even students to be. So how do you get GameMaker? Well, you can just download GameMaker. If you do that, it won't be able to export to any of the bigger game things. GameMaker can export to Xbox, PlayStation, as well as Stream. So all of the major places that you would see games, you'll have to buy a seat for that. That seat gives you an unlimited number of seats, basically, for your students. We do not collect any student information anymore, so that you just have the one seat that you sign up for, and then you distribute that to your students. We're really, really trying hard to protect student identity, especially in a world where we have all the AI and everything in the world trying to get student information, or everybody's information. So we're very sensitive to the student privacy and the issues that may happen there. There are two license options, the educator option and the achiever option. Both of those you can get with Studica about and talk to about how you can make this available for all your students. And of course, we are always available at GameMaker to support you. We have a support group that will be very quick to get back to you if you have any issues or any problems as you go through these, go through trying GameMaker out. And we're also there for your students. I think that's about it for me. Oh, Next steps to Christy.
Thank you, Frank. Just if anybody's looking for further information, if you would like a quote for any of those licenses, or if you have questions, please feel free to contact us at Studica. The email is info@studica.com, or when I send you the follow-up email, you can respond to that as well. And I just wanted to thank everyone for their time today, and thank you, Frank, for this presentation.